Hello there guys, welcome to another of my live video. So just going to give you some latest transfer rumours and gossip. Obviously we know that the transfer window doesn't open until January, but we are all aware that Manchester United now are making plans for the January transfer window. Obviously during the summer we did recommend three good players to the squad. Obviously we spent nearly £150 million on Daniel James and Wan-Bissaka and on Harry Maguire. And it was good in the aspect, during the summer, that we did address, some of the problematic areas. But, the element of concern was, we didn't address all the problematic areas. But I did initially say, it was going to be hard, to address all the problematic areas in one summer transfer window. Like I mentioned, you're still getting certain Manchester United fans, that are obviously, backing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I know that the vast majority of Man United fans are demanding him out in the football club. And you're also, getting some form of Manchester United players and certain pundits, that are saying, we should stick with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Some people are saying, that we need to give him a couple of windows, to make more investment and to see who else, he can recommend in to the football club. Because you can still quite frankly say, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is in the process of rebuilding. Because obviously analysing the majority of this Manchester United squad, it isn't Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Actually, the majority of this Manchester United squad is Jose Mourinho's, and Jose Mourinho did recommend 11 players into the football club, and Solskjaer now is inheriting the vast majority of them. But I did initially say, quite recently that Manchester United need at least 5 to 6 more signings, if we are to be back, to being a competitive elite level football club. Like I mentioned recently, Ryan Giggs came out and he basically said that, he thinks that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer needs more time. He says, in his opinion, we need about 4 or 5 more players, to bring the glory days back to Manchester United. So possibly, Solskjaer, could be still at Manchester United by January, because I think, it has been assured that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's job is safe at Manchester United now. At least for the next couple of games. Well, for this present time, his job's safe. I think also Ole Gunnar Solskjaer fears. He figures that he will be sacked by Manchester United if we do finish out with the top 6 this season. But obviously, as you all know, it has been revealed how much it will cost Manchester United to get rid of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and Manchester United will have to pay around £7 million in compensation. That's obviously around half than what we paid to sack what we paid to sack Jose Mourinho. I think we paid around, around £20 million, to get rid of Jose Mourinho. But like I mentioned, we are enjoying our worst start to a Premier League season for 3 decades. And we're just sitting 2 points above the relegation. We're sitting 2 points above relegation now, so you can quite frankly say, we are facing them relegation battle. Like I mentioned, since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had got the job permanently, we have the 4th worst record in the Premier League. I think it's only Brighton, Southampton and Watford that have got worse records than Manchester United. But like I mentioned, I don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's tenure is going to become successful at Manchester United. If Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is to beat Manchester United in the next 2 summers, reportedly it mentioned that he will be backed with 8 new signings, but I can't see obviously Ole Gunnar Solskjaer being here within the next 2 summers. But I think if Solskjaer is to be here by January, obviously he does want to continue the policy of recruiting young British players, like he did do, of course, earlier on in the summer. So obviously, like I mentioned, you can see the deficiencies in the squad that do need to be addressed. Definitely Manchester United need a midfielder. We definitely need a midfielder. Obviously, from the majority of the summer, don't forget, was in search for them right winger. We also need a striker. We need someone that can assure us goals. We need someone that can lead the lines, because I think we look exposed in that attacking line. Following the dismissal of Romelu Lukaku and Alexis Sanchez. Obviously, as well with the injuries of Anthony Martial. Don't forget, Rashford was injured not too long ago. So yeah, we need to see some inspiration in that attacking third in the pitch, because so far this season, we've only managed 9 league goals in 8 Premier League games so far. But yeah, definitely no further more investment is needed into the squad, and I think Manchester United have assured that Solskjaer will get money to spend in January. Probably unlikely that we'll spend a substantial amount in January. Maybe we'll leave the majority of it until next summer. But like I mentioned, I think, with our inconsistency, I think, everyone, needs to take responsibility. So I think, the blame stems from everybody. But like I mentioned, I think the vast majority of the blame stems from the board, because, the board weren't ruthless enough during this summer. They didn't back Ole Gunnar Solskjaer enough during the summer. And I do believe that the board have been a liability for several years. And like Gary Neville said, a couple of weeks ago now, he gave a lot of criticism to the board, with their poor recruitment and their poor selection of managers. But yeah, I think the vast majority of the blame does stem from the board. Like I mentioned, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's also got to take some responsibility because obviously his tactics in that are questionable, and I will admit, Manchester United are tactically inept. A lot of the blame also stems from a lot of the players because they've been underperforming this season, and obviously a lot of the players do need reality check, and also some of the blame does stem from Ed Woodward. But like I mentioned, the vast majority of the blame stems from the board. You've also got Rio Ferdinand recently coming out, and he believes Manchester United would be naive to sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So he believes, Manchester United will stick with him. But like I did mention, I think, in a way, I do feel sorry for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer because I think, like I mentioned, the club have put him in a really, really difficult position. I think, we should never give Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the job, and I think the vast majority of Manchester United fans, will agree with me on that aspect. We should have waited until the end of last season, or we should have waited at some point until this season to decide, whether to give him the job or not. And I think the only reason that the club are sticking with Solskjaer at this present time is because, he was a club legend, he was a great player for Manchester United for 11 years, he flourished under Alex Ferguson's guidance. This is the only reason, the club are sticking with him because, like I mentioned, he was a club legend and that. And I think, if this would have been any other manager, I think, they would have been sacked by now. So obviously, with him being a club legend, obviously the board are softening their stance on him. But like I mentioned, Solskjaer now has had, around 10 months at Manchester United overall. He has been at the football club just under a year, so you can quite frankly say he's enjoyed a difficult 7-month tenure at Manchester United because obviously at the first he came in as the interim manager, and obviously he was the interim manager for 3 months, and Solskjaer did really, really well in that 3-month period. When he was the interim manager, the results were good, the performances were good, he was getting the best out of these group of players, and he exceeded expectations. And since he's got the job permanently, everything of course has just seemed to have all gone wrong. Don't forget, he has got a 3-year contract, but I think Solskjaer is aware of the of his expectations and that. So what he's saying is, if he doesn't obviously exceed expectations, obviously he knows he's going to be sacked by the football club. But like I mentioned at the end of last season, and I mentioned at the start of this season, that I think our expectations this season obviously will be to finish in the top 4, and obviously try and get back into the Champions League. But I've already disregarded the top 4. I think the way things have been going so far this season, and if they do continue to persist, I think we'll struggle to finish in the top 6 or even the top 7. But yeah, the way things are going at the moment, we're going to have a really, really bad season. But yeah, we need to get back into the Champions League. And I did say, that was one of the main reasons that went against us during the summer. Obviously, we ain't got Champions League football. And obviously, if you're not in Champions League football, obviously, it's going to be harder to attract players to elite level. This is why I did mention during the summer that a lot of players had element of concerns about joining the football club. I think we've only failed to secure European football once since 1990. And since 1990, which was obviously around 20 28, 29 years ago now. But yeah, definitely everything, in my opinion, needs to improve at Manchester United. The performances need to improve, the results need to improve, our away form needs to improve because, I think it's 11 away games now. Solskjaer's had without a win. Last away game we won was PSG last season. I think a lot of players need to step up to the plate. The style of play needs to improve. Everything needs to improve at the football club. And like I mentioned, my element of concerns about Solskjaer is that he hasn't got any intuition as a manager. What I mean is he hasn't really got that managerial experience. Not really to the highest level. Obviously, before he came to Man United, he won a couple of Norwegian titles of mould. Obviously, had a really short tenure with Cardiff. And obviously ended up, getting Cardiff, relegated. And in that aspect, he could be compatible with Manchester United because he could, end up, getting us relegated. I don't see it happening. Like I said, the club's too big and, there's too much money and that into the football club. We haven't been relegated, since 1974. I think it's about 1974, the last time Manchester United were relegated, which was obviously now over 40 odd years ago. But yeah, so I'm going to now talk with you about, recent reports that have been speculating out about, players, that Manchester United, could go in for in January. So we will start with Declan Rice. So I've just been reading recent reports, and it does say Manchester United could bid up to around £70 million for Declan Rice in January. Now, obviously, I think we inquired about Declan Rice's services, back in the summer transfer window. I don't think he was one of our main priority targets. I'd say, was tentatively linked to him. As you all know, Declan Rice is he's a predominantly defensive midfielder, I think, but he can also, operate as a centre back. He has cemented himself in West Ham. He has cemented in West Ham's, he has cemented as a regular in West Ham's midfield as Declan Rice. Obviously, he's well Premier League proven. He initially learned his trade in the Premier League. Declan Rice has made 78 appearances for West Ham in all competitions. Obviously, the vast majority of his appearances have come in the Premier League because he's made about 69 of those appearances in the Premier League. I think he did get a new long-term contract with West Ham in December of last year, so he is under contract with them until 2024. I think, Declan Rice is aware of the speculation, but I don't think he's paying much attention to the speculation because I think he's recently insisted that he is happy with West Ham. He is, like I mentioned, he's only 20 years of age, he's British, and he would, fit Mulligan and Solskjaer's transfer strategy, perfectly. And like I mentioned, that midfield area is one of the priority areas where Man United need to strengthen up. We need to see depth in that midfield, we need creativeness in that midfield, and I think Declan Rice, would be reliable, to bring more of that. But yeah, he has been at West Ham now a number of years. He's been their senior squad for a number of years. Obviously, before Declan Rice, was at West Ham. Obviously, he actually began his career with Chelsea, and I think he was in Chelsea's youth set up, for around 8 years. I don't think he ever, got into their first team. But he's another player now on Manchester United's agenda. But I do believe he would, dramatically improve in that midfield. Obviously, the football club are looking to recruit a replacement for Ander Herrera. And yeah, so reportedly we could pay up to around £70 million for him in January. I've also been reading recent reports about Marcus Rashford. Recent reports about Marcus Rashford. Now, we do know so far that Marcus Rashford has spent the entirety of his career, with Manchester United. Obviously, Marcus Rashford has been a United player since the age of 7. Obviously, he's been in the senior squad with us, since 2016. And since he broke into the senior squad, I think Rashford has gone on to make 180 appearances for the football club in all competitions, scored 48 goals. He's made 119 of those appearances, of course, in the Premier League. And I think he scored 30 goals in the Premier League as Marcus Rashford. But yeah, like I mentioned, he's enjoyed a really, really difficult time at Manchester United this season. Also, he's enjoyed a difficult time, now for quite a while. Obviously, in comparison to his time, when he first broke into the senior squad. Because don't forget, Marcus Rashford scored on his Premier League debut twice against Arsenal back in February 2016. He also scored in his Europa League debut against Midtjylland. He also scored in his first ever Manchester derby in that. And Rashford, is still 21 years of age. But for look, me analysing it now, I don't think he's obviously going to spend the entirety of his career with Manchester United. I do believe he will move on at some point. Obviously, we know that Rashford is on a substantial amount of the club at just the age of 21. He's on around £300,000 a week. But a lot of people believe anywhere that Rashford, is overrated. I know he was injured not too long ago. He hasn't scored, since the opening day against Chelsea. So he really needs to step up to the plate. But now you've got recent reports coming out saying that, Barcelona have identified, Marcus Rashford as one of their top priority targets. They've identified Marcus Rashford as one of their top priority targets. I think Barcelona have got around, 3 or 4 players on their agenda who they could, go in for in January, because obviously Barcelona are looking for a long-term replacement for Luis Suarez. Obviously, I think he's 32. He's nearly 33 in that. But yes, I think actually Barcelona's preference is Rashford and Kane over Liverpool's Roberto Firmino, according to recent reports. But obviously, don't forget, Barcelona and Real Madrid, Real Madrid have also, been in for Marcus Rashford in the past. So do you think he could possibly, leave the football club? But yeah, like I mentioned, anyway, a lot of players have left now, since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's arrival. But I still believe, despite the fact that a lot of players have left, since Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's arrival, I still believe, there is more problematic players at the football club, that do need to leave. Like I mentioned, other players on our agenda, who we could go in for in January. Don't forget, there was recent talks about, Lyon's Moussa Dembele. And, I like, Moussa Dembele a lot, of what I've seen of him. Obviously, Moussa Dembele now is into his second season with Lyon. Obviously, it was his debut season last season with Lyon. And I think, he scored around 20 goals last season. I think in total so far in Liga 1, Moussa Dembele, has 41 appearances, scored around 20, is it around... I can't believe, is it around 21 goals he's scored in 41 appearances? I think in all competitions so far for Lyon, he has scored 28 goals in just under 60 appearances. He is under contract with Lyon until 2023. If we had to go in for him in January, I think he is going to cost the club a substantial amount. I think, we're going to have to pay in the excess of around £71 million, because obviously this is what Lyon are demanding. But yeah, he has become a fruition, with Lyon. Obviously, Lyon did pay around £20 million for him last summer, because he did have a good couple of years with Celtic before then he went with Lyon. Obviously before he was at Celtic, he was at Fulham. He obviously began his senior career with Fulham and that, so that'd be beneficial for us because he's had experience of playing in the Premier League. Moussa Dembele is an out-and-out number 9. And I think he would be reliable, to deliver them goals we do need. Obviously, I think he would be a good, adequate replacement for Romelu Lukaku. So he's another player on Manchester United's agenda. Don't forget also, James Maddison is also on our agenda. He's predominantly an attacking midfielder. And he's another player Man United, could go in for in January or next summer. Again, I do presume, James Maddison, will cost the club a substantial amount of money. Obviously, don't forget, we did business with Leicester, earlier on in the summer. Obviously, we paid... we paid around £80 million for Harry Maguire. And if Leicester had to do, any business, with James Maddison, I think, they would demand a similar sort of figure. But I think, James Maddison, would be the right calibre player for Manchester United. I think he would address our midfield. It's also good as well because he can play on the left, even though he's predominantly an attacking midfielder, because Brendan Rodgers has played James Maddison on the left, quite a few times. I think he's enjoying a great start to this season. He also did well in his debut season with Leicester last season, because last season he was involved involved in 14 goals. He was involved in 14 goals. Last season he created more chances than any other player, don't forget. I think he must have created around 100 chances in the Premier League last season. James Maddison still has 4 years remaining on his current contract with Leicester. Leicester did pay around £20 million for him last summer from Norwich. He did serve a couple of years with Norwich, did James Maddison. He also had a loan spell with Aberdeen, and he also began his career with Coventry, where I think at that point, quite a few teams were tracking him. But I think, we've been tracking, James Maddison since June. We was in for him during the summer, but he was only tentative links with him. He wasn't one of our main priority targets, and he is only 22 years of age. But yeah, he's another player on our agenda. Don't forget, towards the back end of the summer transfer window, we did inquire about getting Mario Mandzukic. And I admire him because I think he's had a fantastic career as Mario Mandzukic, and he is actually, a cheap alternative. He's Mario Mandzukic. He probably only cost the club from between 15 to 20 million pounds. Obviously, I think, the board have got element of concerns about recommending him into the football club. Obviously, reflecting on his age, because, Mario Mandzukic, I think now, is around 33 years of age. But yeah, like I mentioned, he would be a cheap alternative. Don't forget, we tried getting Dybala in the last couple of weeks of the window, but obviously we didn't manage to get him. But yeah, these a lot of players on our agenda and that, and we've got to be competitive in the January window, and obviously next summer, because like I mentioned, analysing our recruitment policy, it isn't too good, to be quite honest with you. And like I mentioned, it wasn't only the summer, wasn't competitive enough. Obviously, in January, we didn't, get anybody, obviously reflecting back last summer under the Jose Mourinho era, we didn't obviously, get the players, of course, that we did want to recommend in to the football club. So for me, we've got to be ruthless in the January transfer window. That's very, very essential. But like I mentioned, I said at the start of the summer, maybe we should orchestrate on being sensible with our recruitment, which means obviously, not overpay for players, like Manchester United have been known for doing in recent years. Obviously, they has been prime examples of it this summer. So maybe we should, orchestrate on being sensible with our recruitment, because I can give you a prime example. Liverpool have obviously, done it. They've been sensible with their recruitment, and look, where they are now, sitting at the top of the Premier League and that. But we're known for overpaying for our players anyway. I do believe the football club definitely overpaid for Harry Maguire, even though I think he's enjoyed a great start to his Manchester United career. And that, I think, we still overpaid for him. Harry Maguire obviously is the most expensive defender in the world. He's the most expensive defender in the world. He's the second most expensive signing at the football club. But yeah, we definitely overpaid for him. But I think, he has addressed our defensive deficiencies. I think, we overpaid for Fred last summer. We paid just under £50 million for him. You could say, we overpaid for Paul Pogba. But yeah, we're known for overpaying for players, and as well, when it comes to letting them go, we let them go for next to nothing. But yeah, we'll have to see, who we can try and get in January. But like I mentioned, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, is our fourth permanent manager since the Alex Ferguson era. And like I mentioned, we haven't really got the structure to keep sacking managers, even though we have sacked 3 managers already since the Alex Ferguson era. But like I mentioned, regardless of who our manager is, even if we had a manager, with a proven pedigree and, to the highest level now, they still wouldn't replicate, what, Alex Ferguson that did. And definitely Solskjaer can't invoke Alex Ferguson's legacy, to save him at Manchester United. Obviously, like I mentioned, Ferguson was fantastic. I know you can take into account that, he didn't win out in his first 4 years at Manchester United. Obviously, when we recommended him in from Aberdeen back in, 1984, he didn't win out in his first 4 years. And at that point, he was on the verge of getting the sack and he didn't. And then look what he went and accomplished. We had 20 odd years of success under him. And obviously, he controlled the transfer policy, he controlled a lot of the contracts, he developed a lot of young players. And obviously, the vast majority of our silverware we won obviously came under the Alex Ferguson era, because I think we won around 38 trophies under Alex Ferguson. But we know now this is, we know now in this generation, managers, don't get the time, that they would like, and that, back in the old generation, managers got the time that they obviously, wanted, because obviously the board, we're nowhere near as ruthless as they are now. But like I did mention, we're no longer now under the Alex Ferguson era. This is a different era, with different players and different groups that we are building. Like recently, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, was saying, and like I did say, some people have got sympathy for Solskjaer, because, I've got to be honest, this is the worst Manchester United team I've seen in this generation, for a lot of years. But like I mentioned, there's some aspects of me that do credit Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Like I mentioned, he did recommend 3 good players to the squad. He has also, got a lot of trustworthy in his young upcoming players, and he did, get rid of a lot of the deadwood, during the course of the summer. But we are aware that a massive rebuild is needed at the football club. A massive rebuild is needed and that at the football club. But for me, I think the board do need to assure structural changes at the football club, and whether they can assure these structural changes or not, I do not know. Whether they can assure these structural changes or not, I do not know. Obviously, as I recently updated you as well, in regards to the new director of football at Manchester United, obviously, I said that's one of the structural changes Manchester United do need, and for the majority of the summer, we was in for a new director of football, and like I mentioned, if we'd have got that new director of football in at the beginning of the summer, then maybe in that aspect, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer would have been back more during the course in the summer. But there was quite a few former Manchester United players linked with the director as well during the summer. Like I mentioned, there was talks of Ferdinand coming in. Obviously, there was talks of Darren Fletcher. There was talks of Patrice Evra. I think also Paul Mitchell was linked with it at one point. But I think Man United are still looking to get a director of football. And obviously, we do know recently, there has been a lot of talks about Edwin van der Sar coming in to the football club, and I think Van der Sar, has pinpointed out at some point in his future, that he would like, to return to Manchester United as the new director of football. But a lot of Manchester United fans, do believe that, Edwin van der Sar would be the right candidate, because obviously Edwin van der Sar has got that experience. He obviously knows the traditions of the football club, and we've been very, very impressed with the work he's done at Ajax, because Edwin van der Sar is a chief executive at Ajax. He's now into his 4th season there with Ajax, as you all know. But yeah, I think he will definitely be reliable, to oversee our transfer business without a shadow of a doubt. But yeah, that could happen at some point in his future, as he has indicated out, because he has described Manchester United as a fantastic club. And I think we've actually identified Edwin van der Sar as our number one priority, which is obviously very, very good. But Manchester United, as you all know, I've got a lot of injuries. You can't take that. You can take that into account. You can't obviously use it as an excuse. Reflecting on our bad run of performances. But we have had quite a few players, imperative players out, with injury. Obviously, Anthony Martial, of course, has been out with injury. Obviously, he's not even played a single minute. He hasn't had a single minute under his belt since the 2-1 defeat to Crystal Palace. I think Martial's missed the last 6 or 7 games for Manchester United in all competitions due to this thigh injury. And like I said, I think he should be back for the Liverpool game. But like I mentioned, I think the vast majority of our players that are now injured, most of them, should have regained full fitness, for the game against Liverpool. And Martial, I'll be relieved, when he comes back into the Manchester United team, because I thought before he got injured, he enjoyed a great start to this season. I think at the beginning of the season, he scored 2 goals and provided 1 assist in his first 3 games. And we do know, the inspiration he adds in that attacking third of the pitch, that we are aware the fluidity he brings in that attacking third of the pitch. And we know that Anthony Martial, of course, is predominantly a left winger. He plays out wide, but it got confirmed at the start of this season that Anthony Martial has been given that number 9 shirt. So Martial, does look more effective in that central position. He does look more effective in that central position. And like I said, Martial and Rashford can both play in the same position, so they are compatible in that aspect. But Martial's more of the standout player centrally. And Martial's only 23, and he has still got a lot of development in him. He's now into his 5th season as a Manchester United player. Is Anthony Martial. And he has scored over 50 goals for the football club. Don't forget he signed a new 5-year deal back in January. He signed a new 5-year deal back in January. But yeah, he should be back for Liverpool. And Luke Shaw, of course, has also missed the last 6 or 7 games for Manchester United with injury. He's been out over hamstring injury as Luke Shaw. Like I said, he's also a very, very imperative player. Of course, he's our first choice left back. Is Luke Shaw, and a lot of people talk about Luke Shaw, being very injury prone, and I do agree on that aspect. He's injury prone. I don't think he's you can't put him to the same extent as obviously Eric Bailly, because I think he's a lot more injury prone than Luke Shaw. But I think prior to his injuries and prior to the bad spell he had under Mourinho, I think analysing the majority of his Man United career, I think Luke Shaw has been mainly consistent. Don't forget Luke Shaw won the double player of the season last season, reflecting on his impressive performances. But we are aware the difference he does make on that left hand side. But yeah, should be back for Liverpool. Eric Bailly, we know he's obviously just going to be one of the players that's not going to be back for Liverpool because obviously he's out until the end of December or the new year over serious knee injury that he had sustained throughout pre-season. Possible Mensu, obviously he's out over injury, don't forget. Obviously, Wan-Bissaka is expected to return. He's missed the last 2 league games for Man United. He has missed the last 3 in all competitions with illness. Wan-Bissaka, of course, has been out with tonsillitis. And yeah, like I mentioned, Wan-Bissaka is our first choice right back. A lot of people believe he has been one of our most consistent signings at the football club, and I will agree on that aspect. I think he has, and I think if Wan-Bissaka, does keep the consistency up, I do think, I do think his valuation will persistently grow. Jesse Lingard's been out with a hamstring injury, as you all know. He came off injured in the 0-0 draw with Alkmaar. Jesse Lingard. He's been out of a hamstring problem, and I think he's another one of the players that really needs to step up to the plate, because I think he's enjoyed a really poor start to this season. He also did poor in the last couple of months of last season. Don't get me wrong, in my opinion, I'd still say it's a long-term solution for Man United, but reflecting on Jesse Lingard's status at the football club, he should be putting much more better performances out. Don't forget Jesse Lingard was out with illness early on in the season. You've got Victor Lindelof, who's obviously out with a back injury. This is the main factor reason why he missed the 1-0 defeat to Newcastle. Victor Lindelof, I think, analysing him this season, I think for the large periods of this season, I think he's been very consistent. I think, like I mentioned, he's had a couple of games, where he has been below par, but I think prior to that, he has done really, really well. Lindelof, obviously, is now into his 3rd season as a Manchester United player, and I think he's flourishing at the football club, and I think he's blending in alongside Harry Maguire in our backline fantastically well. He has made around 70-odd appearances for the club in all competitions since he arrived from Benfica back in 2017. Obviously, we paid around 31 million, to get him, Victor Lindelof. Obviously, we now know he signed a 5-year contract with an option of a further year, I think it was. But yeah, he's out with back injury, so he definitely should be back for Liverpool. Obviously, Phil Jones has been out with injury. I think Diego Dalot has obviously been out of injury. He's sustained quite a few injuries so far this season. As Diego Dalot, obviously he's one of the backup options in that full-back area. Like I mentioned, I think he's made a couple of appearances so far this season. I'd give him more time at the club because he's one of the young upcoming players. Obviously, we only got him last summer from Porto. I think we paid around 19 or 20 million pounds for him. And I did give you the news, didn't I? Was it yesterday or a couple of days ago? In regards to Paul Pogba, there has been recent reports circulating out in the media saying that Paul Pogba could miss the game against Liverpool. Well, I think one report did actually almost assure that Paul Pogba will miss the game against Liverpool due to his ongoing foot injury that has obviously been surrounding the player for a number of weeks and that. I think it did recently say that fitness staff fear that Paul Pogba could be out until the end of October or the beginning of November. So if that is to be true, then that means Pogba's obviously going to miss the rest of the games in October. So he's going to miss Liverpool on Sunday. He's going to miss Norwich, he's going to miss Partizan Belgrade, he's going to miss Chelsea at the end of the month in the Carabao Cup, and we do know that Paul Pogba is still a very, very imperative player, even though we do know he's mainly enjoyed a difficult time at Manchester United, since he rejoined from Juventus back in 2016 and that. And I think he's in the games he's played in this season, he hasn't performed to the standards as we all expected, but he's still a very, very imperative player. But he could still possibly, be involved in the game against Liverpool. And, like I mentioned, we have seen, Paul Pogba at his best as a Manchester United player. Obviously, we mainly saw Paul Pogba at his best, in that 3-month period when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, was the interim manager. That's when we mainly saw, Paul Pogba at his best. And you mainly see the best of Pogba, when he's 3'd up. And I still believe that, Paul Pogba wants out of the football club. So I think he's orchestrating on either leaving Manchester United in January. If he doesn't leave in January, I do believe, he will leave next summer. Don't forget, reports were speculating out the other week, saying that, Paul Pogba, was demanding a substantial 600 grand a week from the football club, if he was to extend his contract at Manchester United. And I think Man United have held negotiations with Paul Pogba's agent, Mini Raiola, over the possibility of obviously extending his contract and obviously, to discuss his future in that at the football club. And I can't see Manchester United, willing to give, Paul Pogba, 600 grand a week. That's a hell of a lot of money. That's a hell of a lot of money, and 600 grand a week equates to around 30 million pounds a year. Probably, even though we've got the financial power, to meet those wage demands, because as it already stands, we've got players on big contracts. And Paul Pogba, in his current deal at the moment, he's on around 290 grand a week. So in that aspect, he is one of the highest paid players in at the club. He's got 2 years left still though on his current deal, with an option, to extend by a further year. I still believe that Paul Pogba's preference is a move to Real Madrid, like it was, for the entirety of the summer transfer window. But I did say, the main factor reason why Paul Pogba didn't go to Real Madrid is reflecting on the substantial amount Manchester United put on him. Because obviously, we said, we wanted around, 180 million pounds. Obviously, Real Madrid were not willing to meet that. And I think, we remain adamant that Paul Pogba, he's not going to be for sale in January. But Manchester United did pay £89 million to him. So like I mentioned, he is our most expensive signing. It wasn't only Real Madrid, that were in for him during the summer. There was quite a few other teams, that were in for him as well. Like I mentioned, there was talks about him making a return back to Turin. Obviously, I think PSG allegedly, nearly got him on deadline day. But his move never materialised because of the Neymar saga. It also, says that, that Barcelona didn't inquire about his services. And Paul Pogba's brother, Matthews, he fueled speculation, quite a few times, during the course of the summer. But, Paul Pogba revealed at the beginning of the summer that he wanted to leave Manchester United, and obviously, he publicly admitted this. He wanted to leave, basically, to rejuvenate his career. But Paul Pogba's 26 years of age, and he can still quite frankly say he's in his prime. He has still got a lot of development in him. I don't think he's yet scored this season. He has missed a lot of games, due to injury, but he hasn't scored this season. I think he's provided a couple of assists. provided a couple of assists and that. But, Paul Pogba, we have seen him at his best as a Manchester United player, and we do know the difference he does make in that midfield, when he hits top form. You can definitely see the difference in the midfield when you do take Paul Pogba out of the equation. So I am hopeful that, he can, be, if he can't start against Liverpool, at least he can be involved in the game against Liverpool. But yeah, I got quite a lot of injuries and that. He did recently say as well that Mason Greenwood has also, got a back injury. He's been sustained the back injury. Don't forget, it wasn't too long ago that Mason Greenwood, was out with tonsillitis. And like I did mention, we have, got a lot of young, players in the squad, that are developing and trying to improve them at Manchester United and that. And like I mentioned yesterday on my other recent videos that, I don't think all the young upcoming players, are going to become a success at Manchester United. Like I mentioned, I've got some element of concerns about certain young upcoming players, but I can assure that Mason Greenwood's going to become a success at the football club. And I think by the time he's 23, 24 years of age, Mason Greenwood, I think he can be a world-class centre-forward for us. Like I said in the last couple of games, he has been playing on that right-hand side. Mason Greenwood is yet to make an appearance, he's yet to make a start in the Premier League. So he's made 6 substitute appearances so far in the Premier League so far this season. But he has got to start one game, as Greenwood could start against Liverpool, but can't see him actually starting against Liverpool. But Mason Greenwood only turned 18 years of age at the beginning of this month. But like I mentioned, he scored in the games against Rochdale and FC Astana, so he came up with a moment of quality in them 2 particular games. But yeah, he'll succeed at Man United. I've got the same thoughts about Alex Tuanzebe. He's another player who I think, will succeed at Manchester United. And Alex Tuanzebe, he's predominantly a centre-back, but he can also play as a full-back and that. And like I mentioned, we have got quite a few versatile defenders. But Alex Tuanzebe, yeah, definitely will become a success at the football club. And I think since he returned, from Villa earlier on in the summer, I think he's actually become a fruition at Manchester United in the games, he has played in this season. Like I mentioned, I have got some element of concerns about Chong. Definitely got some element of concerns about him. Don't forget, he received loan offers early on this summer from PSV and his former club Feyenoord, but obviously turned these loan offers down because he wants to commit his future in Manchester United. Well, he wants to stay at the football club at least for this season anyway. Chong is only 19 years of age. I think he has played a couple of times this season, but I would definitely say he is comparison to Mason Greenwood. I have been very, very impressed there with McTominay so far this season. Like I said, he has been playing. He has been a first team regular this season in that midfield, especially in the league games. I think he's had one bad game this season. That was in the 1-0 defeat to Newcastle. But I think prior to that, I think in the other games he's played in, I think he's done he's done fantastically well. I do believe, he has put Paul Pogba to shame. Like I mentioned, in regards to McTominay being a long-term solution for Man United, I have got element of concerns about that, without a shadow of a doubt. These question marks around McTominay, can he keep the consistency up? And, to be fair, I hope he can keep the consistency up. But, he is only 22 years of age. But I'll credit him, he has done really, really well. For majority of this season, early on this season, he was playing alongside Paul Pogba. Then, obviously, due to the absence of Paul Pogba, he was playing alongside Matic quite a few times. He's played, I think, alongside Fred in a couple of games this season. But, to be fair, McTominay and Fred, did look so exposed in that midfield in the 1-0 defeat to Newcastle. And my overarching view on Fred is that, he's had a good couple of games this season. He hasn't performed to the standards as we all expected, but in my personal opinion, I think we need to give Fred, more time at the football club. Not all players that come to clubs like Manchester United and any other club, settle in straight away like our new signings have done. Fred just hasn't settled in fully yet, but I think he's had a good couple of games. Obviously, he's only been here since last summer, like I mentioned, we paid just under £50 million for him. He hasn't performed to the same sort of level, as he did do with Shakhtar Shakhtar Donetsk, because Fred was actually an exceptional player at Shakhtar Donetsk. But in my opinion, I think we do need to give him time. You've also got Angel Gomez. He's another one of the young upcoming players, and he's another one of our midfield options. You know, you've got Jimmy Garner. I don't think he's yet made an appearance so far this season, but I think he did play quite a few times throughout pre-season, did Jimmy Garner. But I did say, you know, that midfield needs to be addressed, but as it stands at the moment, I think any of our midfield options are much better options than Matic. I've got to say that. But in my opinion, you know, we need to see more players go in January or next summer or at some point in the future, because, you know, there's players that are not good enough to represent Manchester United. And, you know, like I mentioned, you know, a lot of players have left since Solskjaer's arrival. I think one mistake from the football club, you know, was letting Ander Herrera go. You know, we need to recruit a replacement for him, but we shouldn't have let him ever go, because you could arguably say he was one of our best players since the Alex Ferguson era was Ander Herrera. You know, I was more infuriated that we let him go on a free transfer, but we know, you know, we should have never got rid of Ander Herrera. You know, we should have never got rid of Ander Herrera. But, you know, for me, players that need to be moved on, you know, if you're asking me, I think definitely Young needs to be moved on in January or at the end of the season. You know, Jones, I think, needs to be moved on in January or next summer, because they're two problematic players at the football club. We know Jones and Young have been two long-serving players at the club. You know, they've been here the same length of time, more or less. You know, Young's been here 8 years, Jones has been here 8 years. They're now obviously into 9 seasons as Manchester United players. Young's obviously 34. You know, I think Phil Jones is in his late 20s, nearly I think in his early 30s. So obviously, you know, they're aging up as well. But for me, they're just no longer good enough to represent Manchester United. Young's been playing on a regular basis in the league this season, you know, due to obviously, you know, the absentees. You know, we've had you know, to players that play at fullback and that. But for me, they're two players that need to be moved on. Maybe Marcus Rojo needs to be moved on. You know, Rojo's just got under 2 years left on his contract at the football club, and don't forget, during the summer, Everton had inquired about getting him on deadline day. I think a few other teams, you know, went in for him. You know, despite the fact that Smalling left, you know, we have still got 6 centre-backs in the team. Talking about Matic, I think he's definitely a player that needs to be moved on. If we are to let him go in the summer, obviously, you know, we won't cash in for him because his current contract expires at the end of the season, even though we do have an option, you know, to extend it by a further year. You do now have got a lot of element of concerns about Matic. He's too slow, makes that midfield look totally imbalanced. And now he's into his 3rd season as a Man United player. I don't think he's far away, you know, from making don't think he's far away from making 100 appearances, you know, and that for the football club. But yeah, has been mainly inconsistent. But like I mentioned, you know, reflecting on the amount of money that's been spent in this football club, reflecting on the history of it, you know, we should be much more commanding a position that we're in now, because I think, you know, an estimated guess in the last 6 or 7 years, around about 700-800 odd million pounds has been invested into this football club on players. That's just under £1 billion, and that's obviously not taking into account, you know, what was spent under Alex Ferguson. If you want to take into account what was spent under Ferguson, obviously it's way over £1 billion that has been spent at the football club. And, you know, like I mentioned, you know, we haven't only spent big on players. We've now obviously, you know, got players on big contracts. But I think, you know, it's just worse under the Ole Gunnar Solskjaer era, you know, than what it was under the Jose Mourinho era. It's even worse, you know, than it was under the David Moyes era. And I think that was the one particular time under the David Moyes era since 1990 that we failed to secure European football. But yeah, you know, I think a lot of people believe us getting rid of Solskjaer now, you know, wouldn't solve a lot of problems at Manchester United. You know, like I mentioned, we have got a list of managers on our agenda, you know, who could replace him at the football club, like I've already updated you on. We'll see what happens. So the main part of this video was to give you a bit more transfer news and that, and all the rest of the other news. So drop your comments, likes, support on the channel. If you do, consider subscribe. As always, and take care. God bless, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Thanks for watching.